Welcome to the John Campea Podcast, episode 11 for Wednesday, March the 30th, 2016. This episode of the John Campea Podcast is sponsored by GeekFeed.com. Stuff your geek hole. Hey guys, and thanks for joining me on this episode. We're going to talk about what is the best superhero movie of 2016 so far. James Gunn may or may not come back for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, a Blacklist spin-off series, and is GAMBIT canceled? All this and a whole bunch more. So sit back, relax. The John Campea Podcast starts right now. Good morning, guys. Thanks for joining me on this 11th episode of the John Campea Podcast. Thanks for being here today. Man, what a busy week this has been. And that's a good thing. It's all good stuff, but a busy week nonetheless. Lots of stuff going on. Batman versus Superman, that's still all flying around. Lots of stuff in the news. Before I get to it, I want to share something kind of cool with you. So, as you all know, right now, technically, I am unemployed as of this moment. I've got an upcoming gig, yes. I have several upcoming gigs, yes. But as of this moment, right now, I'm kind of unemployed. But it's funny because I thought once I stepped down as the head of Collider Video, I thought I would have, a month and a half or 2 months of relative downtime, of relative peace and quiet. And that's one of the reasons why I started the John Campea Podcast, because I thought, hey, man, I'm going to have tons of time for the next few months, at least anyway. That's a good chance for me to get my new podcast up and running. But I swear, I think I've been as busy lately as I was when I was still the head of Collider Video, just because prepping for other things, but then a lot of other stuff comes up, and it's all good. It's all good. It's all fun, but it's been crazy. Yesterday is a great example of that. So yesterday, I got up and I had to leave my place at 8 a.m. to make an hour and 45-minute drive to Santa Monica. Now, if you know Los Angeles at all, Santa Monica is not that far from Burbank, but in Los Angeles traffic, that's almost a 2-hour drive. So I had to drive out there because I had a meeting with Lionsgate, and Lionsgate is, of course, one of the big companies behind the new Comic-Con HQ channel, which I'm going to be doing one of my new shows on. And so I had to drive out to meet with a couple of the vice presidents at Lionsgate yesterday. And one of them, I knew one of them's name was Sarah, but for whatever reason in my head, I did not put two and two together. Here's what I'm talking about. I love it when the various pockets of my world get to overlap and interconnect. Because as many of you know, number one, I'm a big movie freak. That's my number one, passion in life. A very close second to that is sports. I'm a huge sports nut. But a very close third, or maybe even tied with second, I'm a tech head. Like, I love new technology. I love computers and apps and all that. I like to stay up to date and all that kind of stuff. The other day I was talking about Sling TV and Sling boxes and whatever. But anyway, being a big tech guy, an online network that I have followed for years and years and years and years and years is This Week in Tech, also known as TWiT, This Week in Tech. And they are an online network run by this guy named Leo Laporte, who I followed for a very, very long time. He's actually one of my even though I've met Leo a couple of times, so he doesn't know me from Adam, and we don't know each other per se, but he's kind of like one of my spiritual mentors when it comes to podcasting and things like that. I'm a big fan of Leo Laporte, but he had a number of shows. He still has a lot of shows, like 30 or 40 or 50 shows on the TWiT network, and it's all technology stuff. But anyway, my favorite of those shows was a daily show called Tech News Today. And they just talked about all the news and tech news. Anyway, and it was hosted by these three really cool people, Tom Merritt, Ayaz Akhtar, and my favorite, Sarah Lane. And Sarah Lane was on a number of shows. She's been in the tech world a very, very long time. She also hosted shows on that network, like their iPad show and their iPhone show. And then she was hosting a new show over there called Tech News Tonight, which was a second daily tech show they did. And long and the short of it is, I've followed Sarah Lane for a very long time. And it broke my heart about a year ago or a year and a half ago, maybe, who knows, it might be getting close to 2 years. I don't feel like it was that long, but I'd have to look it up. But it broke my heart when that Tech News Today team of Tom Merritt, Ayaz Akhtar, Sarah Lane broke up, or were broken up, however it played out. I don't know. I don't know the inside skinny. But Tom Merritt is no longer there. Ayaz Akhtar is no longer there. And Sarah Lane was still there for a while and still doing some things, but then she left, and I believe she went to TechCrunch. And it's been heartbreak for me as a big fan of Twit and the Twit network, because that show became unwatchable. They brought in this other guy named Mike Elgin to host the show, who is clearly a very smart guy and probably a dude I would like to hang around with and have dinner with and just talk tech with. He's clearly a very, very smart guy, but he didn't have any on-camera personality at all. And it was very dry, and it was very difficult to watch their shows at all. So I couldn't watch Tech News Today anymore. And then another favorite show of mine there was the show, a weekly show they did, which was awesome, called Before You Buy. And basically what it was this show where they just highlight all these cool new tech gadgets. Everything from the newest phones to cool home entertainment gadgets to, new technology for your car, and just all this really, really cool stuff. And they canceled that show. And I have no idea why. It was my absolute favorite show on the network. Then they had, they have a couple other shows I still really enjoy. They have, because I'm an Android guy, I'm a Mac computer user, but for my mobile devices, I really prefer Android over iOS. So they have this show called All About Android, which is a weekly show that I really enjoy. They have another show called This Week in Mac, and I watch that show all the time. But anyway, getting back to the main point of it, Sarah Lane was a very big key member of that whole Twit team for me for a long time, and before that too. I think she was involved with G4 before that. Anyway, so I go to Lionsgate yesterday for this meeting about the new network and stuff like that, to meet with these vice presidents. And that's when I realized I'm waiting in the lobby for this VP, Sarah, to come get me. And who comes down into the lobby to get me but Sarah Lane? So to me, she was the vice president I was waiting for. And I had never put two and two together that this was the same Sarah Lane. I don't know why. I guess I just wasn't even envisioning my worlds overlapping that way. So I had that meeting. It was really cool. Sarah was as cool as I envisioned she would be. I'm really looking forward. I'm actually meeting with her again later today. But so that was really cool when worlds kind of intertwined. But yeah, yesterday was so weird because talking about how, being unemployed, I thought I have a lot less time. So I get up at 8. I drive at 8 for almost a couple of hours to go to Lionsgate. I immediately finish that meeting at Lionsgate, just haul ass to drive all the way back to Burbank because I have to do Heroes with John Schnepp. So I fly back for Heroes, and because of some things going on in the studio, we were a little bit late getting the show started, Heroes, and I had to leave by 2:30. So for any of you who watched Heroes yesterday, you'll notice that about 3/4 of the way through the show on Heroes, I disappeared. Well, the reason I disappeared was because we started the show late, and I had a hard out at 2:30. So at 2:30 hit, and I had to leave. So I left. Why did I have to leave at 2:30? Because I then had to hightail it to Beverly Hills, because at long last, even though they've been trying and I've been trying to make it happen, yesterday we were finally able to make it happen where I was on Movie Fights for the Screen Junkies. And it streamed live on their subscription service, but it goes online on YouTube for free on Saturday. And it was basically, it's me and a partner versus Dan Murrell and a partner. And the reason they asked me to come in for this particular show is because they wanted to debate Batman versus Superman. And they wanted somebody to defend Batman versus Superman. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. So in I went. It was great hanging out with Andy and Dan and Ken Knapsack, who's one of their producers there too, and the other guys. Harley from Epic Mealtime was Dan Murrell's partner. So, and he's a good Canadian kid from Montreal. So that was kind of cool. Got to hang out with him. So then I got done that, and then I took an Uber home, and I didn't get home till 7:30. And that's the day of an unemployed guy. I can't wait to see what my schedule looks like once I get my full-time jobs up and running and rolling. But it's been fun. I've been having a really good time. But hey, listen, a bunch of stuff to talk about today in the world of movie news. This first thing is this. One of the conversations that came up after I was done my stuff at Movie Fights yesterday was, hey, a lot of people asking, what's the best superhero movie of 2016 so far? And right now we've only had two. We have a couple of other very, very big ones coming soon. But as of right now, what is the best superhero movie of 2016? And we've had two major ones, right? We've had Deadpool, and now we've had Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. If you had told me, well, look, let me back up a little bit here. As I just mentioned, I went on Movie Fights to defend Batman vs. Superman. Whether I won or lost, you'll have to wait till Saturday to see. But I went on Movie Fights to defend Batman vs. Superman. You know me. You've been listening to, if you've been listening to this podcast, I completely acknowledge the problems with this film. And I will be one of the first people to say this film did not live up to its potential. Pacing problems, story flow problems, editing problems, all that kind of stuff. I've even said that I don't think Zack Snyder should come back to direct Justice League. He is directing Justice League, but I kind of thought that it might be best for him to move on to another project and get his creative batteries recharged and bring in some new blood to direct a DC film. But he's coming back, and that's fine. But even though all that's true, I've seen the film 3 times now. I haven't gotten around to seeing it a 4th time yet. I will do that this week. I still really enjoy the film. Yes, it has this problem, it has this problem, this problem. That's fine. But the things that are great about the movie, and this is just for me personally, the things that are great about the movie, I think far outweigh the bad. So that by the time the end credits roll, I have been entertained and I enjoyed myself and I had a good time watching this movie. So I went back a 2nd time and I went back a 3rd time and I'll be going back a 4th time. So I am one of those Batman versus Superman defenders. I like the film, and I'm unapologetic about that. I think it's a really entertaining movie with its problems, with its flaws. You won't hear me argue that, but it's an entertaining movie to me. So anyway, the question then comes up: which one is better, Deadpool or Batman v Superman? Now, if you had told me, I don't know, 5 months ago. And I'm somebody who I had a lot of faith and hope for the Deadpool movie, but still, had you told me 5 months ago that fast forward now, John, to the end of March, and you'll be saying that Deadpool is the better movie than Batman v Superman, I would have said you're crazy. I think Deadpool has a chance of being really special, but I think Batman vs. Superman is going to be better, even if it's not perfect. But look, you got to call it what it is. Deadpool's the better movie. Both in terms of the editing and story flow of Deadpool are awesome. The way they jumped back and forth through. Now remember, jumping back and forth through time is not a good or a bad thing. It's how well you handle it. So I've seen movies that try to jump back and forth through different periods of time in a non-linear way, and it be an absolute mess. And certainly Deadpool had the potential to be an absolute, brutal, terrible mess. But the way they did it, the skill they did it with, was beautiful. It was great. So it had better editing, it had better story flow, it had all that, and it was wildly entertaining. Now, were any of the action scenes, Deadpool has some awesome action scenes. Are any of the action scenes in Deadpool as good as that Batman warehouse fight? I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but in the trailer, you saw there's a Batman warehouse fight. Are any of them as good as the Batman versus Superman fight? Or any of them any good as the big fight against Doomsday? No. Those action scenes are all better in Batman versus Superman. But overall, Deadpool was a more entertaining movie. It was wildly entertaining. Better story flow, all that kind of stuff. To me, it's a no-brainer. To me, anyway, personally, just my opinion, Deadpool is the better movie. As a matter of fact, though, that's almost an unfair comparison because actually, to me, right now, Deadpool is the best movie of the year. Honestly, I can't think of another film this year that I have come out of the theater so jazzed and just with this big of a smile on my face and having had that good of a time as any other film. So it's almost unfair to put up Batman versus Superman against it when in reality, in my personal opinion, Deadpool, in entertainment value and a lot of other ways, Deadpool is the best movie of 2016 so far. And so it's a little bit unfair comparison. Now, this will be an interesting discussion because as of right now, like I said, we've only had 2 comic book movies this year. Where are we going to be at the end of 2016 when we still have Captain America Civil War coming out, X-Men Apocalypse coming out, and Doctor Strange coming out? That will then be an interesting discussion. That'll be a very interesting discussion. Because I'm really stoked. I am really, really jazzed for Captain America Civil War. I cannot wait for that movie. I'm super excited for X-Men Apocalypse. Very excited for Doctor Strange. But yeah, we still got a lot of great comic book movies to come, and we will see how this will end up. But for me personally, even though I am one of the most vocal Batman v Superman supporters and defenders, even I will say that I think Deadpool is the superior movie. So tell me what you guys think. Jump into a comments here and send me off a tweet or whatever, and let me know what you guys think about what do you think was the best comic book movie of 2016 so far. All right, let's move on to this. An interesting interview with James Gunn just came out. Now, if the name sounds familiar, that's because James Gunn is a Hollywood director. He directed such films as Super, a little indie superhero film called Super. Well, it's kind of a superhero film with Rainn Wilson. He directed one of what I think is one of the most tragically underrated films ever, called Slither, with Nathan Fillion and Elizabeth Banks and Michael Rooker. Amazing film. I cannot talk enough about Slither. Slither is just one of these great comedy horrors. Go check it out if you have not, but it's directed by James Gunn. But the reason James Gunn might be ringing a bell in your head is because he's also the guy who directed Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course, James Gunn is hard at work making Guardians of the Galaxy 2 right now. Well, anyway, he just did an interview. I think it was on social media. And somebody asked him, or the question was posed, are you going to do Guardians of the Galaxy 3? And James said something as he's, well, as a matter of fact, Marvel has already brought the topic up, if he's going to be interested to come back to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which is nice because if James is telling the truth, and I have no reason to believe he isn't telling the truth, and Marvel has actually approached him and talked to him already about his interest in doing Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that must mean they're pretty happy with how Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is coming together so far. So to me, that's encouraging. So he acknowledged that Marvel has already talked to him about it, but he said this. He said, look, and I'm paraphrasing him here a little bit, but he said, I'm not really thinking about it. He goes, right now, I am just focused on making Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 the best movie it can be. I'm just focused on that. I haven't started worrying about number 3 yet. Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. And for me personally, I got to tell you, I love that answer. I love that answer. Look, I'm going to tell you straight up. I hope James Gunn does not come back to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But John, I thought you said you love James Gunn. I do. I think he's an awesome director. I think he's incredible. I didn't say I don't want to see James Gunn direct another movie. I just said I don't want to see James Gunn direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Why? Because you might have heard me say this before. I have come to believe that creative forces like a James Gunn, like a Sam Raimi, whatever, I believe creative forces like these guys can't and shouldn't stay on a single property for too long because I believe it stunts their creativity. I believe creative forces like James Gunn need to constantly be changing things up, embrace new challenges, tell new stories, or else they risk getting a little bit stale and getting stuck in some ruts. I mean, look, Sam Raimi, I've mentioned this before, Sam Raimi is a fantastic director. I love Sam Raimi. Now, a lot of people poo-pooed on his most recent Wizard of Oz movie that he did with James Franco. Personally, I really liked it. I thought it was very creative, very original, very fresh. I enjoyed it an awful lot. And I know a lot of people didn't, and that's cool, but I did. I think Sam Raimi's incredible. But I also think Sam Raimi stayed on Spider-Man too long. Look, his first Spider-Man film was really good. His second Spider-Man film, some people argue that his second Spider-Man film, Spider-Man 2, might be the best comic book movie ever made. I don't think it's the best comic book movie ever made, but you will get an argument from some people that one with Doc Ock, that was the best comic book movie ever made. It's certainly one of the best comic book movies ever made. It's wonderful. But then he went back to the well again, and he did number 3. And 3 was a terrible, terrible mess. Now, some people naively then go, oh, John, that wasn't Sam Raimi's fault. That was the studio's fault, because the studio made Sam Raimi use Venom, and he didn't want to use Venom. So it's the studio's fault. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because if the studio was making him use Venom, and let's face it, the reason the studio wanted him to use Venom is because all the fans were screaming at them, give us Venom. All the fans wanted to see Venom. But if the studio made it a mandate to Sam Raimi to use Venom, okay, then just make a good movie with Venom. Go. I mean, it's just that simple. Yeah, he didn't want to use Venom. That wasn't in his plans. But okay, you got to use Venom. Great. Now make a great Spider-Man movie with Venom. Go. Nothing's stopping him. And I'm sorry. Guess what? When the movies work out great, like here's a good example of this. I know I'm getting off on a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but here's a good example of this. You know that first Avengers movie, which a lot of people think is the greatest comic book movie ever made. I personally still think the first Avengers is the best comic book movie ever made. But that first Avengers, Joss Whedon tells the story himself. The studio made him use characters he wasn't going to use and made him take out characters he wanted to use and made him put in certain action sequences that he wasn't necessarily going to use. The studio forced Joss Whedon to do a lot of stuff. And guess what? Turned out great. And Joss Whedon says part of the reason this movie worked out so great was because of the teamwork I had with Disney and with Marvel. Because they wanted certain things that I wouldn't have done, and we put it in and it worked, and it's great. So Joss Whedon gets handed some stuff he didn't want to use, and he said, okay, then I'm just going to make the best movie I can with this, and it worked out great. Sam Raimi could have done the same thing. He could have done the same thing, and he didn't. Why? Because Sam Raimi isn't a good director? That's nonsense. We all know Sam Raimi is an awesome director. So what is it? I think in part, I'm not saying this is the only reason, but I think the reason it worked out to be such a disaster, in part, is because at some point Sam Raimi just ran out of creativity for this one franchise. Like, how many times could we see Mary Jane being held prisoner by the bad guy, dangling from a high place? I'm not kidding. In every single one of Sam Raimi's 3 Spider-Man movies, at some point, the bad guy gets her and dangles her from a high place. That's in all 3 of the Spider-Man movies. I'm sorry. Get something else. Come up with something else. And there were a lot of problems with The Amazing Spider-Man 3 that had nothing to do with Venom. I mean, so I get sick and tired of hearing this naive repertoire from people just saying, oh, well, Spider-Man 3 failed because the studio interfered. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. Grow up. Look at the bigger picture. That is not why The Amazing Spider-Man 3 failed. It's not. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. We're talking about James Gunn. I personally would like to see James Gunn move on. Not because I don't think he isn't awesome, because he is awesome. He's incredible. But after he delivers Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and even if it just comes close to being as good as the first Guardians, it's going to be awesome. But after he's done that, I then want to see him keep his creative juices flowing, walk away from Guardians, and go do something else. And give us something else that's awesome. And then let some fresh blood come in and a fresh set of eyes come in and take over Guardians of the Galaxy. Look, am I going to be mad if James Gunn comes back to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'll be a little worried. I'll be a little concerned because this is 3 films in a row on the same property. I've seen it happen before. Look, even Christopher Nolan, like Dark Knight Rises was the worst of the 3 Batman films he did. And Dark Knight Rises isn't a bad film, but compared to the other 2, to Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises does not measure up. And I just think there are some track records of really talented filmmakers who, by the time they get into the 3rd film of a franchise, it starts to show. You know what I mean? And so if they announce that James Gunn is coming back to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I'll be fine with it. It's just that I'll be a little concerned going into Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I think I would be much more excited to hear about a new project from James Gunn. Maybe still working with Disney, maybe even still working with Marvel, but I'd love to hear him working on a new property and then having Guardians with a fresh set of eyes. Not because I don't think James Gunn isn't talented enough, it's because I think James Gunn is that talented. And because I think James Gunn is such a creative force, that I would personally be more interested in seeing him move on to new properties to give us new original movies than coming back for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And I'd be interested in seeing a fresh set of eyes in the director's chair taking over Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But we'll see. We'll see how it comes out. I'm sure it's going to work out just fine either way. For now, I agree with James Gunn. Let's just focus on Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and our excitement for that and looking forward to that. All right, third topic I want to bring up here today. One of my favorite shows on TV. I don't watch a whole ton of TV. I maybe have a lot of people have 30 shows that they watch. I maybe watch about 10. I think I have about 10 shows that I watch. And one of them that is right up near my top is a show called The Blacklist with James Spader. I love The Blacklist. I got hooked on this show, partially because of James Spader, but it's also really good writing and a good ensemble cast, and Harry Lennox is in it, and I love him, and all that kind of stuff. So I really like the show. Anyway, a piece of news came out here that is rather interesting. Now, in an upcoming episode of The Blacklist, X-Men actress Famke Janssen, who, of course, played Jean Grey in all the original X-Men films, is going to have a role in it. But apparently, they are setting it up so her character is going to get her own spin-off show from The Blacklist, and that her guest appearance on The Blacklist is actually going to serve as a rough pilot, if you will, for this new spin-off. Now, I find this interesting. I'm concerned and excited at the same time. Excited because I love The Blacklist and I love what they do in it, and having a spin-off show of that great show is intriguing. So on that side, I'm kind of excited. I'm also kind of excited because I'm a big fan of Famke Janssen. Or Janssen. I'm excited because I loved her in the X-Men films. I even thought playing the Wicked Witch, I thought she was pretty damn good in Hansel and Gretel. And I liked her in the Taken movies, so I'm excited to see her get her own show. But here's where I get a little bit concerned. I get a little bit concerned when it feels like everything now, you've heard me talk about this, I feel like everything now has to be a shared cinematic universe. Because we see all the movie studios now are trying to set up shared cinematic universes. Hell, Sony's even doing a 21 Jump Street and Men in Black crossover. Yeah, you heard that right. They're doing a 21 Jump Street Men in Black crossover. Like, everybody's so desperate to create these shared cinematic universes. I can't remember which network it is that has, I think it's NBC, or it could be, let's say NBC for argument's sake. But they have this Chicago shared television universe where they have Chicago Med, Chicago PD, and Chicago Fire. And they're all interconnected, these 3 shows. And I think they're even interconnected with Criminal Intent or something like that. One of the New York-based, the New York-based cop show with Ice-T. Anyway, that is tied in as well. So they all have this big shared cinematic universe. Even Fox has been doing it, because they just did the strangest crossover. Another show that I watch, it's not my top 5, but another show that I watch is, oh crap, what is it with the Headless Horseman? Sleepy Hollow. It's Sleepy Hollow. Like I said, it's not my top 5, but I do watch it. And they're so desperate to create shared cinematic universes. They did a Sleepy Hollow and Bones crossover. Yeah, Bones, the crime-solving show. They crossed that over with the supernatural Sleepy Hollow show. Very odd. They did so. That's really strange. But everybody seems desperate to create these shared cinematic universes now. And while I'm not opposed to the idea of Spinnoff from The Blacklist, it's like, do you have to create a shared cinematic universe with The Blacklist? Can't you just let The Blacklist be The Blacklist? Do you have to create a spinoff show from it? Because you know what's going to happen. It's like, then they're going to reference Red Reddington as many times as they can to try to get those viewers over. I don't know. I mean, maybe it'll be a great idea. Maybe it'll be an awesome idea. And maybe it'll work out fantastic. Like I said, I love The Blacklist, and I'm really happy to see Famke come in and get some big stuff. By the way, am I mispronouncing her name? I think I've mispronounced her name like 1,000 times in my life, but the way I currently say it is Famke Janssen. If I'm saying it wrong, please tell me. But because I've said it a million different ways, and I'm sure I've said it wrong every single time that I've done it. So yeah, anyway, there you go. All right, guys, before we go on with the rest of the show, I want to take a little break. And when we take this break, we're going to thank the sponsor of this episode. We would like to thank our sponsor for this episode, GeekFeed.com, the world's greatest dedicated geek news feed, providing you with fresh, juicy, up-to-the-minute breaking news and shareable content on all things geek. It's the place to get your geek fix. They eat and sleep nothing but geek, scouring the interweb to serve up some seriously tasty geek nuggets. So get ready to cram every orifice with the very latest from the world of comics, games, TV, and movies. Chow down on the funniest vines and memes. Feast your eyes on the latest trailers, posters, and fan art. Stuff your geek hole full of... Okay, you get the idea. Remember to connect with GeekFeed.com across all social media platforms at GeekFeed.com. That's at GeekFeed, DOTCOM. And we at the John Campea Podcast would like to thank GeekFeed.com for their support. And we are back. Hey, speaking of comic book movies and shared cinematic universes and all this kind of thing, how about the drama surrounding GAMBIT? So... Channing Tatum, first of all, Laura Shuna Donner, who is like one of the big producers of all the X-Men films, stuff like that, she has been hell-bent on getting a Gambit movie now. She loves that character, and she loves Channing Tatum. And so for years now, we've known that she was looking at Tatum do a Gambit movie, and then like last year, it got confirmed and announced Channing Tatum's going to be Gambit. And look, I'll tell you, I'm one of the guys that I didn't mind the announcement. And you know, for a long time, I did not like Channing Tatum as an actor. I thought he was terrible for a very, very long time. But look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Give the man his due. Because over years and years and years and years, he worked and worked and worked and worked and trained and trained and trained and trained and got better and better and better and better, and then found his stride. And now I actually enjoy watching Channing Tatum in movies. I think he's a really good performer. Now, it's taken him a long time, but he put in the work, he dedicated himself, and it has paid off. So I'm actually one of those guys that when they announced Channing Tatum, a lot of people poo-pooed the idea. They thought they didn't like the idea. But me personally, I was like, you know what? Channing Tatum may not be my first choice to play Gambit. And Gambit may not be my first choice for an X-Men spinoff film. But I can see this working. I'm on board. But ever since then, it has been nothing but drama. Like with writers coming and going, and then directors coming and going. Remember, Rupert Wyatt, the director of like that Planet of the Apes movie, did such a great job in that. He was on board to direct, then delays, boom, he's off. Then all of a sudden, another very, very good director comes on board. Doug Liman comes on board to direct it. He's had some great films. And then stall. Then we hear that there's budget problems, and then we hear it's being delayed. Then we hear Channing Tatum is walking. Remember that? We heard that Channing Tatum may be walking away. That one report came out in Deadline or The Wrap. I can't remember which was that he was on the verge of walking away. Then no, he's on board and announcing, no, this is happening. Everybody's woo. And then they had a release date for it. And then the release date got canceled. They had a start of shooting date, and then that didn't happen. And all this drama's been going on. And then now it's been announced. Doug Liman has let people know that he's delaying his involvement with it because he's going to go off and direct something else now. Now, my buddy John Schnepp, he and I were on Heroes yesterday, and Schnepp is convinced that Gambit is just flat out canceled. He believes that even though Fox isn't saying it at this point, Schnepp and many other people believe that Gambit is just flat out canceled. I don't think it's canceled, but I don't think we're about to see it anytime soon either. And I'm kind of the opinion now of something else. I do think within the next year, this is what I said on Heroes, I'll say it here too. I do think within the next year, we're going to hear that Gambit has a new start date and a new release date, but it's not going to be Doug Liman directing. And I also think it's going to lose Channing Tatum. And I think it's going to lose that ridiculous $150 million production budget. There is no need for a Gambit movie to be $150 million to produce. Not when you just did Deadpool. Okay? Not when you just did Deadpool. Same studio. You just did Deadpool, which I think is the best movie of the year so far, for $58 million. There is no justifiable reason that a Gambit standalone movie needs $150 million. No way. Plus, look, just because it's Channing Tatum, he's a big movie star, that doesn't mean people are going to rushing out to the theater. And Gambit is one of the lesser knowns. So was Deadpool, granted, but it's a risk. You've got to mitigate your risk by keeping your production budget reasonable. Now, it doesn't have to be as low as $58 million, but make it $70 million. Make it $75 million. Fine. But there's no rational reason that a Gambit standalone movie has to be $150 million. So, look, this whole project has been plagued with drama since day one. And they have obviously hit some major roadblocks. I do believe we're not about to hear about a Gambit movie again in the next few months. But I do think that within the year, we will hear about it coming back. We will hear about it being back on track. But it will be without Doug Liman. Unfortunately, because I think Doug Liman would have done a really good job with Gambit. So I say I don't think Doug Liman's coming back, but I'm sad about that. I think he would have done really good with a Deadpool or with a Gambit movie. But I think it'll be without Doug Liman, and I think it'll be without Channing Tatum. And I'm also kind of bummed about that. Because like I said, I'm one of those guys that I actually thought the idea of Channing Tatum playing Gambit had some potential. Now, I also probably bet that Channing Tatum, I don't know this, so take this with a giant grain of salt. I do not know this for fact. I'm just speculating here, okay? But I also think part of the reason that a Gambit movie had the $150 million budget, some people said it was actually $200 million, but let's say $150 million, is because of Channing Tatum. Not just because of whatever enormous paycheck he was probably demanding, but he also came on as a producer and he was probably insisting and asking for big, big money. So, again, I don't know that. Maybe that's not true. And I don't fault a creator for wanting bigger budgets and more money. I don't fault the creator for that at all. I'm just saying it created a situation that I think became unworkable. And now I think that experiment's done. Now, for all I know, in 2 weeks, Doug Liman and Channing Tatum could hold a press conference and say, hey, we're starting production on Gambit next week. And then we'll all look stupid. But I do think that this incarnation of Gambit is done, but I think within the year, because Laura Schooner Donner is such a big fan of it, she will make this happen. I just think it'll be without Liman and without Channing Tatum. All right, guys, on every episode of the John Campea Podcast, I like to take some time and take your guys' questions from the Twitter sphere. How do you get a question to me on Twitter? It's very simple. Send out a tweet. Just include in the tweet the hashtag TJCP. Hashtag TJCP, or the John Campea Podcast. So send out a tweet that includes your question and the hashtag TJCP, and I'll see it, and maybe I will pick your question to be on the show. So the first question today comes from BSecord, who writes, what is your favorite hockey movie? Good question. Hockey is my favorite sport. I'm Canadian, so I'm genetically bred to say that, but it's true. I love hockey. Hockey is my favorite sport, right up there with MMA and things like that. But there are some great hockey movies. Here are my top three. My number 3 favorite hockey movie is probably Goon, the one with Seann William Scott. Just a little indie film that Jay Baruchel is co-starred in and also produced. Really, a really cool look at the world of hockey from a slightly skewed point of view, but it's charming and it's funny. And it's just a really good movie. If you haven't had a chance to check out Goon, check it out. My second favorite of all time, and some people are going to say this is sacrilegious that I'm making this my second favorite of all time instead of my favorite, because it is a beloved classic, the original Slapshot with Paul Newman. If you haven't seen, and I know probably most of you have not seen the original Slapshot. It's irreverent, it's rude, it's everything that could be wrong with the movie it is, but it is a classic. Check out Slapshot with Paul Newman if you have not had a chance to do that so far. But honestly, my favorite hockey movie of all time is this little film made by Russell Crowe. Not made by him, but he stars in the film. And Mike Myers does a terrific cameo in it as well, called Mystery Alaska. About this little town. It's a very, very little town called Mystery Alaska in Alaska, where just the community, the whole community just revolves around hockey and playing hockey. And Russell Crowe is one of the guys in that community. And then this little community becomes a big news story. And then the New York Rangers from the NHL decide in the offseason to play an exhibition game against this little community called Mystery Alaska. And it's about this little community coming together to get ready to play this NHL hockey team. Wonderful movie. Wonderful movie. If you have not seen Mystery Alaska, and probably most of you haven't because it's a small little film, I highly recommend going and checking out Mystery Alaska. All right, let's go on to the next question. And I hope I get your name right. This question comes from delsiaaprilia, and Delsia writes, John Campea, random question, but I was wondering, what's your favorite foreign/non-English speaking movies? Thanks a lot for the question. Well, there's the big three to me, and I won't put these, well, I'll put one at number one, and the other two I won't put in any particular order. My all-time favorite non-English foreign film is Life is Beautiful by Roberto Benigni. And that movie is, look, if you don't have your heartstrings pulled watching Life is Beautiful, you're dead inside. This movie it's hard to say it's funny because it's about this Jewish family living in a Nazi concentration camp. It's horrific and it's horrible. But the movie's about this family, this Italian Jewish family who gets put into the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. But the dad, played by Roberto Benigni, he has this little 7-year-old son, and he wants to protect his son from the horrors of what's going on around him. He wants his son to see that life is beautiful, despite the fact that they are in the most horrific circumstances imaginable. And he makes up this story. He tells his son, this is all a big game, and they're trying to win this game. And that the Nazi soldiers are just playing their part in this game, and their role in the game is to try to make the people living in the concentration camps give up. And so he keeps on saying, but we're not going to give up, are we? We're going to win this game. And he just paints this beautiful picture of life in the midst of the most horrific circumstances and tragedies. And within that, it's funny and charming and beautiful. And you will cry. You will cry in this movie. So yeah, anyway, and it won a couple of Oscars as well. Roberto Benigni's Life is Beautiful. I cannot recommend that movie enough. Personally, I think one of the greatest movies ever made. So then the other two that are in my big three, and I won't put these in any particular order. One is this magnificent French film called Amélie. It's got to be about 11, 12, 13 years old now, but just beautiful and charming and enchanting and just everything. The movie is called Amélie. Go check it out. And then the third film I'll mention here is my all-time favorite cop movie. Despite the fact that it's a foreign film, it is my flat-out all-time favorite cop movie, and that is Infernal Affairs. And Infernal Affairs is the film that Martin Scorsese's The Departed was based on. The Departed, which won Martin Scorsese his first directing Academy Award, and also won the Academy Award for Best Picture of the Year that year. The Departed is a remake of this original Asian film, The Departed, or Infernal Affairs, which also happens to be my all-time favorite film. So anyway, my personal big three for my favorite non-English foreign films are Life is Beautiful, Amelie, and Infernal Affairs. Highly recommend you checking all of them out. Okay, let's move on to this next one. And this next one comes from S Flynn 85. S Flynn 85 writes, John, do you think the X-Men movies are being ruined by solely focusing on Mystique and Magneto and not actual X-Men? Well, I mean, look, when you're asking the question, there are two ways to answer this. The first way is, are the X-Men movies being ruined? How are you being ruined? The last X-Men movie we got is X-Men Days of Future Past, and that movie's awesome. The movie before that is X-Men First Class, which a lot of people love. So I don't know they're being ruined. And certainly focusing on Magneto is not bad, because to me, I'm a little biased. Magneto is my favorite X-Men character. As a matter of fact, Magneto is my favorite comic book character in general. But the Magneto character, whether it's been Ian McKellen or Michael Fassbender, has been terrific in the movies. Absolutely terrific in the movies. And Campea has walked into the room because my recording studio and her makeup desk are in the same room. So, and she's laughing at me now. I say, actually, something she's considering. Anne is going to be, I won't make the announcement for her, but she's going to be starting up a new YouTube show for a new YouTube project for herself. But somebody sent in an idea for an Anne Campea YouTube show, and she's grinning as she's listening to me do this. Somebody sent in the idea, hey, she should do just a YouTube webcam show of her on a webcam talking and call it Married to Campea. And for what I did not intend, when I told her about that tweet that I got, that somebody suggested, hey, Anne should do a Married to Campea, ha, ha, ha. She actually went, wait a minute, that might be funny. And I'm like, no, that won't be funny. That won't be funny at all. So, but it should be the opposite. But yeah, no, Anne says it should be the opposite, that I should do a web show called Married to Anne. That would be an entertaining show, actually. The stories I could tell. But anyway, but she does have a very cool idea for a little YouTube show she's going to do soon, but I'll save that for her to work out and to tell you guys about. Anyway, getting back to Magneto Mystique. So look, when you say, are they ruining the X-Men films? Well, nothing's been ruined so far. But that being said, Jennifer Lawrence, and look, I am on record. I love Jennifer. I think she is one of the most talented actresses in Hollywood. She is no flash in the pan. I have said this before. I will say it again. She is going to be an A-lister in this business for a very long time. However, I feel like she's been mailing it in on Mystique. I felt that in X-Men Days of Future Past. I feel like just because Jennifer Lawrence is big and famous and popular right now, they're increasing the role of Mystique. And I've always said that drives me crazy. The actor serves the character should not serve the actor. And they have been changing their story and writing their stories based around, oh, we got this super popular actress playing this one character. Let's increase the role of that character and make that character more important. And that is a dumb decision. Now, they got away with it in X-Men Days of Future Past, but I still think it was a mistake because Jennifer Lawrence has been sleepwalking through these movies. Like even in the trailers for X-Men Apocalypse, that's why I'm here. I'm here to fight. You're X-Men now. Like you can just tell she probably just woke up from a nap and said, oh, Miss Lawrence, it's time to say your line. What? Oh, okay. That's why I'm here. I'm here to fight. Okay. Can I go back to bed? I mean, that's seriously what it's been feeling like. And look, this is coming from somebody who is a big Jennifer Lawrence fan. I think she's uber talented and I love watching her movies. But let's call it what it is. She is sleepwalking and just paychecking these X-Men films. And then Fox is doing something really stupid by altering their stories and changing what their story is to make Mystique a bigger, more important character, which they should never have done in the first place, just to service Jennifer Lawrence. And that has been a mistake. Now, they've gotten away with that mistake because everything else in X-Men Days of Future Past was so great. But now I'm watching these trailers for, X-Men Apocalypse, and it looks like Mystique is like the leader of the X-Men practically. And being led by somebody who's sleepwalking and paychecking through these films. So I'm worried. Look, Bryan Singer, who is directing X-Men Apocalypse, has made nothing but excellent X-Men films so far. He has directed 3 X-Men films, X-Men 1, X-Men 2, and X-Men Days of Future Past. All of them excellent. So I got a lot of faith in Bryan Singer. Tons of faith in Bryan Singer. He also directed The Usual Suspects, which you know is in my top 10 all-time favorite films. The Usual Suspects. Should be in yours as well. He's fantastic. Yeah, he also did Jack the Giant Slayer, but we'll give him a pass on that one. But anyway, I have a lot of faith in him, but I'm watching the trailers for X-Men Apocalypse. I've been dying for X-Men Apocalypse for 20 years, but I'm not feeling it so far in these trailers. And then we hear these reports that the studio isn't happy with the movie either, that they've gone back to like reshoot a full half hour of the film. The movie comes out real soon and they are still, as we speak, in reshoots. All that is concerning. The fact that they've, kowtowed to Jennifer Lawrence and made her character all big and important. The fact that Jennifer Lawrence doesn't seem to care one bit of piss that she's starring in an X-Men film. All these things starting to coalesce together make me a little bit worried. Now, I am still going to go in with expectations because it is an X-Men film being directed by Bryan Singer, and the track record so far on that is 3 for 3. It's a perfect batting average so far. But I will confess I'm a little bit worried. And yes, I do think one of the problems is not the focus on Magneto. Look, the whole franchise should be focused on Magneto and Professor Charles Xavier as far as I'm concerned. But because they've been taking this, what was a minor sidekick character in all the other X-Men films, and making her this big prominent character in these things just because of the actress who's playing her. To me, that's dumb. But we will see soon enough how it turns out. All right, last question of the day. And this one comes from Shinakira 00, who writes, John, you mentioned liking Modern Family. Do you think comedies are a dying breed in the wake of the popularity of comic-based shows? Well, no, first of all, yes, I do like Modern Family very, very much. I love that show. I think it's fantastic. Now that Parks and Recreation is off the air, Modern Family is my favorite comedy on TV. Parks and Rec was my favorite comedy on the air. I miss that show so much. Ann and I would watch it all the time. We still watch reruns. We'll still sit down, every once in a while we'll just sit down, pop on Hulu and pick a random episode of Parks and Recreation and just watch it. I love the thing. But no, look, there are 300 TV shows on right now, and 12 of them are comic book shows. And not many of the comic book shows are super popular. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't get that many viewers. Gotham does okay, but it's not like it's a blockbuster show. Arrow and Flash aren't blockbuster shows. Agent Carter is struggling to survive. Legends of Tomorrow just barely got renewed for season 2. Supergirl isn't doing all that great ratings-wise. So, I mean, I'm thrilled to see that television is taking a stab at really embracing the superhero genre as well. But do I think those shows are overshadowing or taking away from comedies? No, I think Big Bang Theory is still probably the biggest hit on TV right now. I don't even like Big Bang Theory. I do not understand the appeal of that show. I know it's supposed to be aimed at geek culture, but I watch it and it just feels so veneer and fake and not funny. Like, I watched a couple of episodes, didn't grin once. But I got a lot of friends who love that show, think it's hilarious, and, like movies, TV is subjective, more power to you. If you liked it, that's great. But to me, I just don't see the appeal of that show. But that's not the point. The point is, it's a comedy, probably the biggest hit on TV right now. So, yeah, there are a lot of comic book movies, or comic book shows coming out, but they aren't tearing up the ratings charts. And there's only like 12 of them. In a universe now where we have 500 TV channels and stuff like that. So no, I don't think that comic book shows are having a negative impact on comedies right now. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for this installment of the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. I really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, and do me a favor. This is huge. Even if you listen to this podcast on your Android app or some other podcasting service, do me a favor, open up iTunes, find the John Campea Podcast, and make sure you rate and comment on this show. That I'm not asking you to send me money, but that would help me out a lot if you rate and comment on this show. It helps me out a great deal. Make sure you're following me on my social media channels. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and obviously on YouTube at John Campea. You can find me on all those just at John Campea. And by the way, I've been experimenting with, for some of you might notice, I was experimenting with also putting this podcast on my YouTube channel. I'm not going to do that anymore. To me, it's like if it's audio only on YouTube, what's the point of putting on YouTube when the audio feed is here on all these podcast channels for free? So I'm not going to do that, but I am going to be very active on my YouTube channel, putting up movie reviews and things like that and a little commentary. So my YouTube channel is still going to be very active. Make sure you subscribe to it. But I'm not going to be putting this podcast up on the YouTube channel anymore. So do me a favor. If you're in some chat rooms and you see people saying, hey, why isn't the John Campea podcast showing up on the YouTube channel anymore? Let them know you heard it from me, that they're not going to be popping up there anymore. Hey, this is exciting. Today, I am actually going into the Collider studio, and I believe me, Mark, Christian, and Schnepp are going to be doing our Star Wars The Force Awakens DVD Blu-ray commentary today. It just feels like yesterday. I'm looking over at Anne right now putting on her makeup, and it feels like just yesterday I was looking at her putting on her makeup for us to go to the Force Awakens premiere. And now here we are. Today we're doing our DVD Blu-ray commentary of The Force Awakens. Now I know a lot of you are saying, but wait a minute, where's the Return of the Jedi one? Yeah, I know. We argued and debated whether we should do the Return of the Jedi one, and I kind of thought we should do the Return of the Jedi one first, but the decision was made because Dennis is now the head of Collider Video. And I understand the rationale. It's like, you know what, with the Force Awakens DVD coming out now, we should probably do the commentary now to capitalize on when it's coming out. And that's good logic. That is good logic. So we're going to be doing that, and then we will be doing Return of the Jedi in a couple of weeks. So keep your eyes open for that. So that'll do it for me, guys, in this installment of the John Campea Podcast. So grateful that you joined me today. Make sure you come back again and check me out next time. So until then, bye-bye.